If you are thinking about traveling to Iceland, you've been probably paying a very close attention to the news recently.
The threat of a volcanic eruption in Iceland.
Smoke rising out of cracked roads in Iceland.
A major volcanic eruption at any time.
Huge cracks in roads. The ground on Iceland's Reykjanes Peninsula shifting by several feet in recent days.
I know that for those of you who aren't very familiar with the situation, the things that you may have seen and heard in the news lately can be a little bit confusing and perhaps could even make you question whether it is a good idea to travel to Iceland right now. In the last couple of days I actually spent a lot of time on the phone with my family, explaining to them that I am safe and that a lot of what they've heard in the news is just not true. Because as it seems, for the outside world, the news just made it sound like the whole Iceland is about to blow up. And that is just not true, and this is the reason I'm making this video, to kind of clarify the situation, explain what exactly is going on and talk about possible scenarios and its effect that it can have on your travels. And all that without hopefully not sounding overly dramatic.
Surrounded by a sea of lava, it is everywhere.
The volcano that everybody's talking about is expected to erupt right here, next to town Grindavik, which has already been evacuated. The earthquakes that shook the area for many days and damaged the town quite badly has seemed to calm down, which can be explained by decreasing tension as the magma is getting closer to the surface and at the moment sits only a few hundred meters under the surface. But that being said, there are still a lot of concerns, and after the last update that we got this Monday, the situation actually seems to be pointing to even larger eruption than originally expected. Now, I won't go into any scientific details because there are channels who can explain it much better, but what is now basically happening is that the inflow of magma, which is filling up the magma chambers, has now increased 10 times since the beginning, and its total amount equals the same amount or higher than what we've seen in all previous 3 eruptions in this region combined. And as we look at this map right here, they are still looking at this red and purple zone as the most probable location for the eruption. However, I have also heard some mentions of eruption possibly happening right here next to Blue Lagoon, as originally expected. That scenario would mean that the famous Blue Lagoon would probably end up under the lava, while town Grindavik could be protected by the terrain right here, while the second scenario likely means the end for town Grindavik. And it has been very heartbreaking to hear the stories from people who live in this town, and I can't even imagine what the situation must be like for them. In the description below I will leave a link to Icelandic Red Cross, where if you want you can help financially and make a difference even with a small donation. But what does this whole situation mean for you as a traveler? Well, let's take a closer look. The airport which majority of people will use is Keflavik Airport, located right here in Reykjanes Peninsula, about 30 kilometers away from the potential eruption. As of now, however, nobody from Iceland seems to be too concerned about the safety of the airport, which tells me they are still bidding on the magma to find its way up on the land rather than offshore. But if we actually had eruption offshore, that's a much more violent scenario, which in combination with high winds could possibly worsen the overall safety at the airport. But then this is just me debating about possible scenarios, and perhaps if there is somebody educated on this subject or perhaps a pilot, I would love to hear what you guys think. And so if the volcano won't pose any danger to the airport, then it means that the worst case scenario is only that you won't be able to spend too much time in the area of Reykjanes Peninsula. But other than that, what does it mean for the rest of the country? And well, that remains completely safe. But I understand that it is a little bit stressful, and personally I'll be traveling abroad next month, and so of course I worry a little bit because, you know, I booked flights, I booked a hotel, and nobody still knows for sure what exactly is going to happen. So there is this a little bit of uncertainty, and I mean, we can just debate the possible scenarios right now, but if I could bet, then I think that it's going to be just fine. But there is one thing that you can do if you want to be more confident that your flight won't get cancelled because of the situation with volcano. And it is something that I already mentioned in my previous video, and that's to check out flights from London to airport in north of Iceland, Akureyri. But then there's another thing. What many people seem to be worried about is that if the situation gets very bad, they'll simply get stuck here in Iceland. And let me show you why I don't think this will be the case. Keflavik Airport isn't the only airport on the island. There are also many domestic airports, like for example this one in Reykjavik, Akureyri or Egilsstaðir, which could serve as a backup. I mean, sure, Keflavik Airport is much bigger than the other airports in Iceland, but still they are big enough to manage bigger aircrafts if needed. But even then, I still understand that some of you might be simply afraid to come here. Because for those of you who have not experienced previous free eruptions here in Reykjanes Peninsula, when you hear volcano you might immediately think of massive eruptions like Mount St. Helens. But that is completely different than what we are dealing with here right now. And the way that I see it is that wherever in the world you go, there is always a chance of some danger. You have volcanoes, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, and so if you want to let news and your worries dictate the course of your future travels, I mean, you might as well just stay home. And so rather than stressing about what could or could not happen, you can check out my previous video right here, filled with some beautiful views to get you excited about your future trip here in Iceland. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.